Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here, but most of all, thanks to the organizers for having us and giving me the opportunity to tell you about our research campus called ARENA2036. So it is a bit of a change of gears compared to the morning. We heard about policies that are conducive to initiatives like the Industry 4.0, the Robot Revolution Initiative, all initiatives based on the concept of cyber-physical systems, smart, interconnected objects that can change manufacturing today. So, ARENA2036 is a big collaborative effort, of which my organization, Fraunhofer IPA, is one out of 26 members. And we have to thank a number of funding sources for this achievement, including regional government in Baden-Württemberg, the federal government, and up to the European Union. So, as I said, I come from the Institute for Manufacturing, Engineering and Automation, IPA is the German acronym. We are located in Stuttgart. Our activities are understandably influenced a lot by automotive, and it's not a coincidence that ARENA is an automotive research campus, although we deal with all things manufacturing engineering related, and actually with robots. So it was very nice to be invited also for the opportunity to visit IREX. So we go all the way from production means, which you can see on the left, to service robots, which you can see to the right with some human-assisted devices in the middle, but I will make reference to them later. So the mother organization is the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. So it's the largest research organization in Europe for applied research, and I'll get to what I mean by applied in a minute. It is pretty sizable. We have stakes in 80 research institutions. 67 of these are directly named after our founder, Fraunhofer Institutes. In others, we have some shares, and we have some affiliations with. The annual research volume is pretty sizable at almost 2.5 billion. And I would like to mention that what sets us apart compared to other research institutions is the so-called Fraunhofer model that rewards us for contracts that we strike with the private industry. The idea is that not to become just another university lab. We have plenty of them and they work excellently, but to really make a difference and impact the local, but even more so the national and then increasingly the worldwide industry, we are encouraged to get contracts to perform technical consultancy. It's typically state-of-the-art, cutting-edge research. And in this way, we are also incentivized by getting more government funding, which is typically only 30% of what we run our budgets on. If instead we reduce the intake of industrial contracts, we are somehow punished by getting less direct government funding. This seems like a harsh mechanism, but it is very successful in keeping us very relevant to local industry, but at the same time cutting edge in terms of research. We have offices all around the world, including Japan, and we enjoy a number of collaborations, including with Japanese corporations, which are an excellent partner for us. They set the bar very high, and they are good partners in this journey towards digitalization of manufacturing. IPA itself has a number of different laboratories and test beds. We are around 1,000 employees. Half of them are full-time staff, and the other half are student workers. Also a very successful model that we use. Actually, it's a very typical German model, the one of having student workers. The two centers that I'm mostly affiliated with, and are most of interest for you today, are the Application Center Industry 4.0 in the top left, and on the bottom, in the middle, the robotics experimentation area. However, other laboratories are also of interest to ARENA, and also of interest to you today for the kind of topic that we're talking about, from the factory planning activities to the motion laboratory, with which we enhance workers and their ergonomics. So we have a number of departments with groups. I have the honor of leading the software engineering and system integration group within the robotics and assistive system department. Our colleagues in the DigiTools for manufacturing department are also heavily involved in activities with us as we try to go end-to-end in terms of a technology stack that can go from the hardware, the manufacturing hardware, up to IT systems. So we mentioned big data, analytics this morning. These are also topics that we are concerned with. And in terms of flagship examples that are really prime examples of how you can work with us and how we can work together, we strike multi-year cooperations. So one of them with local partners is ARENA. We have some of them with individual corporations. Not all of them are public. Quite a few are confidential. But we are very lucky to have all the sorts of partners that are providing us with a lot of inputs. And again, they're really technically demanding. Actually, of interest to you, in case you pass by Stuttgart, you would be welcome to visit us. In addition to ARENA, would be the Future Work Lab that is focusing on ergonomics and on how the human work in the future will change, thanks to human tracking devices, thanks to exoskeletons. So this is also related to a good extent to what we heard this morning about Society 5.0, I would comment. So ARENA. ARENA2036, so the name first, as you can imagine, it has lots to do with automotive. And in fact, it stands for the active research environment for the next generation of automobiles. And you might wonder, why 2036 then? Well, it happens that in 2036, it happens to be the case, there will be the 150th anniversary of what we consider to be the birth of the automobile, so the first patent filed by Carl Benz. And therefore, it was a good way to symbolize that after 150 years, the environment will have changed quite a lot, both in terms of the product, from the very early automobiles that look quite different from what we see today, and also the way you do them. So ARENA revolves around three concepts, first and foremost. So we have the partners, the box in the middle, that are the primary drivers. So lots of competences from our research centers in the area, so the partners from the University of Stuttgart, institutes like Fraunhofer, and so forth, to local companies or branch offices, subsidiaries of multinational corporations which have some operations in Stuttgart, for instance, for IT, micro data centers, like in the case of HP. The part that brings this, the concept that brings these partners together is the projects. A theme that was driving the first batch of projects was the multi-material lightweight design and value chain systems for automotive. And this is very related with what we talked this morning about on Industry 4.0. And I'm really glad that the session this morning set the stage for this talk, as in the environment which Mr. Hess described in terms of policies, in terms of government support, was very conducive to get to the stage of ARENA. Third element is the building, not because of the building per se, but because it embodies the cooperation among those partners through the projects. So those three elements coming together again. So historically, ARENA started when, roughly 10 years ago, local partners put together ideas and competences that they were thinking about how automobiles would be different in the future. You know, the drive towards electrification, the drive towards autonomous driving. This will make automobiles, for instance, not in need of a crash test, you could imagine, if they are also safe and drive autonomously, no crash involved, or they won't have steering wheel likely. So they will change drastically, and likewise, it will change drastically the way in which you make them. So afterwards, there was a proposal submitted to our Ministry for Education and Research, BMBF, and thanks to the joining of, again, local, national, and European funding, so the local government and the European Union paid for the building, and we thank them for that, whereas our Ministry for Education and Research pays for the awards on a call basis, the projects that go on a 5-year time slot. So the first phase, which is about to end next year, lasted from 2013, and will go on until 2018. For the next phase, the partners need to apply for projects again, thing that they're already doing, of course. So this is a good compromise between having an infrastructure in place, so not having to, again, put partners together all the time, but also having to stay fresh and competitive going with this 5 years time frame projects. So the two things that are so deeply intertwined that we think you have to deal with them together are, again, mobility. I made a reference to autonomous driving, to electrical vehicles, but also there are maybe less evident or maybe less in the press topics that are also driving the change in how cars will look like. So, like, again, lightweight design or materials with embedded electronics, dramatic reduction in weight, again, and how you put them together. Carbon fiber, which is glued, like the way in which cars are being made changes a lot, and it's not just about electrification, but that's definitely a disruptive change. The way in which you make cars has to change as well. We have local examples of a smaller subset of the total production that are electric, that need very different processes compared to their traditional counterparts. Those are cumbersome, those are not really flexible and smart. There can be a change of plants required, and these are all things that we can solve with the production technologies such as those inspired by the Industry 4.0. I was again happy about the reference to Society 5.0 and to the fact that we look at ergonomics as well, because how humans will look like in the factories of the future is of interest to us. Another Fraunhofer Institute, which is part of the ARENA consortium, is Fraunhofer IPA, the Institute for the Organizational Work, which is also located in Stuttgart, which is looking at new organizational models with which you can work in this factory of the future. And again, as you can see, as an overarching topic, you have Industry 4.0 from development to production. So from almost before the idea is conceived or right together with it, you can imagine something like the digital fingerprint of a car that accompanies it from inception to deployment. So the building, again, is a brand new building that is very energy efficient, that is very flexible. We have many partners, more will join us. It needs flexible working spaces in which the shop floor might be reduced in favor of office space. There are co-working areas. It is built on the campus of the university, since many partners are in the same campus, including us, including the German Aerospace Center. Again, it was a funding effort from the European Union and the state for a total of 30 million. It was built in 1 year. Actually, we're pretty proud of this relatively fast time. And again, the fact that the building is so nice is not just to show off with a nice building, but it's also to have a symbol of what the factory of the future could look like in terms of maybe not a dusty or perhaps dirty environment, but almost a laboratory. Here are some impressions from our building that, again, apart from looking very nice as all those new technologies, some particularly high load bearing floors, which can keep level under all sorts of conditions. When you have full cars moving on automated guided vehicles, that can be an issue to deal with. And coming to the partners, again, we have partners that are very focused on research topics, but we have industry partners that are either the manufacturers of the end products that we set off manufacturing. So Daimler is definitely the first and foremost here. We actually have an incoming partner, which is also a manufacturer of the end products, but it is more on the agricultural machinery side of things, to give you an idea of how these technologies can be applied outside of pure automotive. Then there are technology providers from Siemens, Bosch, or the local mechatronic industry like Schunk, to also things that you might not be familiar with right off the bat, like plug and play. Plug and Play is a Silicon Valley-based, but with locations throughout the world, accelerator and incubator to some extent. So they provide space, but also funding. And they are key partners for the cooperation and the human factor part of the project that I'll tell you more about later. So, as I said, development moves in phases of 5 years. And the first phase, which is about to finish, was indeed concerned with creating the cooperation and collaboration space, and also in conceiving and launching the initial projects driven by the topic of lightweight materials for the car of the future. Also setting the stage for this innovation pool and transfer of competences, of new ideas, was a main occupation of our collaborators. Through a number of formulas and concepts that you'll see later, hackathons, innovation pitches, and so forth. Whereas as we move towards the second stage, we'll focus more on projects. We also new project models conceived to have smaller, leaner projects that might last less than 5 years, to account for different needs and different scales and ambitions of projects within automotive. So it's important to note that among those companies that are cooperating with us, some are SMEs. This also leverages a uniqueness, I would say, of the area and also of the country, leveraging a rich environment of small and medium enterprises, which might suffer compared to large corporations from not so high research budget, but that can use partners like us and those innovation hubs or research laboratories like ARENA to stay competitive. And let me also say that in general, all this concept that you see is applied to cars here, but if you think about it, cars are products that are representative enough in terms of engineering complexity, that are undergoing this deep disruption of, again, electrification, autonomous driving. So even though we focus on cars, we think that the lesson learned and what we will develop in terms of competence and expertise will be of interest to other industries. So after the second phase will be over, of course, it's not set in stone what we will do. We will learn a lot during the second phase. We did learn a lot during the first one, but it will definitely be the growth phase after we stabilized and we gained 10 years experience at that point. Here is a summary of the first projects that we launched during the first 4 years. And again, from left to right, you go from the deep engineering that is in the product to how you design it, how you manufacture it, and how you organize those who manufacture it, if you wish. So again, the goal is the weight reduction and cost reduction made possible by smart materials and design, but also how you do design the car. As I said, the fingerprint of a car from birth to when it's rolled out, to actually to maintenance and to recycling. So we're looking at the full life cycle. But then how would you produce this thing? So we're moving away from the concept of the line, the production line, and the conveyor as we move towards mass customization, so being able to produce lots of size 1. There are productions of pieces that are unique to each customer, but still the customer would probably enjoy the costs of mass production. We have to marry those two concepts. And to marry them, we need more flexible means. That means no fixed line, but rather micro-factories on the factory floor that with the smart intralogistics can bring the work pieces to the necessary stations that are not necessarily always the same for all the products. So the part on the extreme right again concerns the new types of cooperation. Here the experiment that we're running with the startup Autobahn, which is the cooperation with Plug and Play, will be key in telling us how you source innovation from startups, which are now an established way after they revolutionized IT and other sectors with which you get innovation fast, but then you have to stabilize it. So in an environment, the one of startups is good to nurture innovation, and one is good to stabilize it, the one of corporations. So bringing those two words together under the same floor, under the same roof, is the idea behind this. And our scientists at Fraunhofer IPA try to develop models describing this interaction. So some technological examples that I would like to mention by our partners in the middle two sections of this slide are a concept like OPC UA yellow pages that our partners, the University of Stuttgart, have to develop to make, for instance, the AGVs from partner Bayer, talk to the APAS from Bosch. So again, very different manufacturing tools that have to be networked together. We have some standard that is heavily recommended by the reference architecture model Industry 4.0 and a technology provider in the area. That's also the significance of having all those partners to make what we heard about this morning concrete. So the goal to further, the way to further the methods and get to innovative project ideas is to combine, again, agility, speed, but also stability. The idea is to get the best of Silicon Valley entrepreneurship and innovation spirit with excellence of German engineering. So the concept is having this partner, startup Autobahn, that has, again, his antennas up all over the world, not only in Silicon Valley, and then can source these ideas and preliminarily present them to partners in Stuttgart to see whether there is a need, and the pilot can be realized. So the significance here of having a shared building is the possibility to have a pilot up and running relatively quickly, and also to have a first evaluation of ideas during project pitches. The fact that Startup Autobahn is also concerned with other topics, not just robotics, automation, manufacturing, but such as big data and blockchain that are very much probably going to influence the trends in manufacturing, is very relevant for us. This is an impression of one of the Expo Days. Expo Days are typically twice a year, and during them, again, the entrepreneurs or the entrepreneurs in the making that Startup Autobahn sources are put together in our building, in the ARENA building, and can present their idea to investors, both local or also those coming on an invitation basis. Again, the two instruments are the project pitches. That's an open platform. A researcher from the University of Stuttgart might have an innovative idea, so he might decide to come during the Startup Autobahn, get a slot, and present the idea, and perhaps get an early stage investment, seed money. Or it could be the pitch of a startup that is 1-2 years in the making, looking for a Series A investment. The three things with which you put everything together, of course, is a good topic that is leveraging a good idea, but the finance to make it flourish is, of course, the element that is not always easy to come by. On the other hand, partners with some finance to invest might not have good partners bringing together pre-selected topics. So this is the top part. For what concerns instead a more practical approach, we see this as a way to source the best from communities. So we know that open source and the type of dynamic open innovation environment that it embodies are very relevant today. They have been in IT for many years and are probably going to be very relevant for manufacturing. So having the possibility to host hackathons and integrate those developer communities, host meetups, is also something that we can use our building from. And again, it could be about having some of the technology providers in ARENA bringing components for them to experiment with, to having the partners bring a concrete need in the form of a use case. And the partners like us, Fraunhofer, the university, bringing a platform. In my group especially, we deal a lot with open source robotics. So the robot operating system and all those trends that started in service robotics and are almost de facto standards there are also heavily used here in Japan, like the Toyota HSR, for instance, a very good example of a service robotics platform runs on those open source platforms. We think the same will transfer from service robotics to industrial robotics and to manufacturing. The fourth is the competences that the developer community brings. So with that, let me say that I gave this talk as a Fraunhofer IPA colleague that is working also on ARENA2036 topics, but ARENA2036 is a legal entity that has its own standing. These are the colleagues of mine who are actually officially in charge of the project. You are welcome if you stop by Stuttgart to contact us so that you can visit ARENA. You can perhaps visit other research centers at the University of Stuttgart or at Fraunhofer IPA. And with that, I thank you for your attention.